Richard Frank, I'm your Master of Ceremonies for your Memorial Day ceremony. I'd like to thank everyone for coming here today. We'd like to start out with our opening prayer with Mr. Reverend Baxter Chisholm of the Tewksbury Congregational Church. Reverend.
Let us take a moment and remember in our hearts that service person that is resting in peace this day. Let us pray. You who created us, you who sustain us, you who call us to live in peace, the one who hears our prayer today. Hear our prayers for those who have died, whose hearts and hopes are known to you alone. Hear our prayer for those who put the welfare of others ahead of their own and gave us their hearts in generosity. Hear our prayer for those who gave their lives in service of others, and may we always cherish their sacrifice in the life we have been given to live in freedom. Help us to shape and make our world a better place, where one day we lay down our arms, we turn away from war, we put down our swords, we pick up our plowshares, and we work for a harvest of justice and peace. Comfort those who grieve today, here in this beautiful resting place for many. Help us to live our lives with a hope of healing. And may our hearts continue to heal as we remember those that gave their lives today. Hear our prayers this day, and let your mercy reign in our lives. The peace of God be with us all. Amen.
Thank you. We will now have the national anthem by swinging seniors in the Tewksbury Memorial High School Chorus. That was very nice, thank you. And now we will have the Pledge of Allegiance from the Tewksbury Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, Eagle Scouts. Okay. Thank you very much. If the Scouts would like to retire to the shade, feel free. Now have a proclamation from the Governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Maura Healey. Whereas, while the nation was still recovering from the horrors of the Civil War, People in cities and towns across the country gathered to honor the Union and Confederate soldiers who had given their lives, celebrating the first Decoration Day. And whereas after World War I, the nation came together again to honor those who had fallen in the service of their country, renamed Memorial Day, the last Monday in May is when people remember and honor the memory of all the men and women who fought and died in all American wars and conflicts. And whereas throughout our country's history, thousands of Massachusetts citizens have fought in wars and conflicts to defend our safety and way of life, and whereas their legacy of patriotism and dedication to the country is an inspiration to all Americans, and whereas it is appropriate that all Massachusetts citizens remember the bravery of those who gave their lives so that their sacrifice served as a reminder to the cost of freedom. Now, therefore, I, Maura T. Healy, Governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, do hereby proclaim May 29th, 2023 to be Memorial Day, and urge all the citizens of the Commonwealth to take cognizance of this event and participate fittingly in its observance. Given at the Executive Chamber in Boston this first day of May in the year 2023 in the independence of the United States of America, 246th. Signed, Maura Healy, Governor, Kimberly Driscoll, Lieutenant Governor, and William Francis Galvin, the Secretary of the Commonwealth. Thank you, Governor. Okay. We will now have greetings from the Chairman of the Select Board, Mr. Todd Johnson.
Good morning. It's a benefit of my position as chair of the Select Board that I get to share such occasions with you and my fellow townsmen. And there's no greater honor than being invited to pay tribute to our veterans. On this Memorial Day, like others, there's much to think about in both the past and the present. There may still be a few last veterans among us who jumped from landing ships into chest-deep water carrying a heavy pack and ran into withering machine gun fire on the beaches of Normandy. There may also be some veterans among us today who nearly froze to death in Korea. And there are surely many who walked the jungle trails of Vietnam. Today, our men and women in uniform, and they are mostly very young, face grave danger and death in troubled lands, knowing that at any moment, an explosion from a hidden roadside bomb may rip through the side of their vehicle, adding to the human tragedy of war. We know the headlines of war, the body count, but I'm confident that most of us are unfamiliar with the daily rigors and challenges of life for our troops abroad. Yet, it is incumbent on us to learn about their experiences. One man who eloquently speaks to the bravery of our troops is John Kelly, who as a Marine Corps Lieutenant General commanded all of our troops in Iraq and recommended 2 young Marines for the Navy Cross, posthumously, for they had died while saving many others. This event, of course, was publicized at the time, but as Kelly told it, one of the Marines was a dirt-poor, mixed-race kid with a wife and daughter and a mother and sister who lived with him. He supported all of them on his meager military earnings. The other was a middle-class white kid. They were from very different backgrounds, but in General Kelly's words, they were combat Marines forged in the crucible of Marine training, and because of this bond, they were brothers as close or closer than if they were born of the same woman. Kelly went on to relate the night these 2 young Marines were standing guard at a barracks with 150 Americans and Iraqis inside when a truck hurtled toward them. From the time it came into view, 22-year-old Corporal Jonathan Yale and 20-year-old Lance Corporal Jordan Hodder had a total of 6 seconds to act. 6 seconds. Kelly points out that the surveillance video shows Iraqi security guards scattering, fleeing for their lives, not the 2 Marines. After watching the video, General Kelly described it this way. He said, "The 2 Marines never started to step aside. They never even shifted their weight. They leaned into the danger, firing as fast as they could work their weapons. They had 1 second to live. The truck explodes. The camera goes blank. 2 young men go to their God." As I mentioned, the Marines had 6 seconds from the time the truck appeared. General Kelly reminds us, again in his words, 6 seconds was enough for 2 very brave men to do their duty for eternity. That is the kind of people who are on watch all over the world for us tonight. Now let me add that when the truck blew up, the 2 young Marines lost their lives, but saved 150 others by stopping the truck in its tracks. 2,000 pounds of explosives in the truck knocked down a nearby mosque, most of a house, and hurled the truck's engine 200 yards. But 150 fellow Marines and Iraqis were saved. I could end my remarks here with this tribute to these young men as representative of many others. But I want to add one more point that General Kelly made when recounting this episode. 22-year-old Jonathan Yale supported his family on $23,000 a year while risking his life in service to his nation. You can make of that what you will. Recent stories in the news report that many of our military families are paid so poorly that they are eligible for food assistance. Recent statistics reflect that at least 160,000 active duty troops are considered food insecure, and 1.2 million veterans depend on food support. I submit that we need to address this unacceptable situation head on and with resolve, just as those 2 young Marines in Iraq did not too many years ago to save 150 other lives. So my friends and neighbors, as we memorialize the veterans who sacrificed so much for us in past wars, we must on this day also contemplate the present and the future as well, and what it means to serve and what it means to truly support those who serve. Thank you for your kind attention. God bless our veterans, and God bless America.
Thank you very much. We will now hear from VFW Post 8164 Commander, Mr. Vinny Oliver, United States Army, United States Air Force Reserve, Vietnam and Iraq veteran. Vinny?
Good morning. Thank you all for being here for this important yet somber occasion. Memorial Day, as we know it today, was born on Decoration Day in Waterloo, New York, back in 1866, when Henry Welch, a local drugstore owner, suggested that all business close for one day to honor in a solemn and patriotic manner the fallen soldiers who lost their lives during the Civil War. A group of Confederate widows decorated fresh graves with wildflowers. The townspeople made wreaths and crosses to place upon the headstones. Flags were waved proudly at half-staff, and an American tradition was born. Now, nearly 160 years later, I stand before you on this proud day of remembrance and ask that you join me in not only remembering those who made the ultimate sacrifice for the good of the great nation, but in truly reflecting on their legacy. There has been no other nation on earth whose sacrifice has been greater than ours. Now, here in the pages of history, has there been a country before ours that has paid a higher price for the freedom of others? Sacred and hallowed ground at Arlington and places like Normandy, Pearl Harbor, and Manila are testament to a high cost of achieving and maintaining freedom around the globe. President John F. Kennedy once said, as we express our gratitude, we must never forget the highest appreciation is not to utter words, but to live by them. I ask that today you embrace those words in entirety. The lives of our fallen soldiers, our fathers, our mothers, our brothers, our sisters, our comrades, were lives not lost in vain or anguish, for each life lost has contributed to the evolution of America as we know it today. A free nation, a strong nation, a nation that stands the tallest when we stand together. So, as we stand together today, we are reminded of the true cost of freedom. And while we as a nation mourn the lives lost, we celebrate the lives and live are forever grateful. Above all, in an attempt to pay back our debt as American citizens, we also must not only remember the fallen, but it is our responsibility to teach our youth that nothing comes without cost, and that sacrifice are meaningless without remembrance. I ask that on this somber occasion, we not accept feelings of grief or reflection without an encompassing feeling of honor, patriotism, and pride. It is said that where one story ends, another begins, a statement that holds true for our fallen service members. Though their lives were cut short, their contributions live on. They have ensured that the Declaration of Independence holds true for everyone, some whose story is just beginning, some who otherwise may not have been entitled to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The courage processed by the men and women we honor today is something that cannot be learned. It is something that is felt deep within. The willingness to die for our beliefs is truly what makes America the home of the brave. The relatively few patriots who wear the cloth of our country have the life that they gave, they have grown accustomed to and trust themselves into unfamiliar and dangerous terrorists, eager to succeed in their endeavors. From Maine's rocky Atlantic coast to the Golden State, ready sandy beaches, this is the land of the free, ensured by generations who believe America is worth fighting for and worth dying for. Today, perhaps more so than any other day throughout this year, we set aside our personal beliefs regarding politics and war and unite in tribute and respect to all those who afforded us the very opportunity to gather freely today. And I would be remiss not to mention the families left behind. Their sacrifice is also felt, and they too have earned our gratitude and appreciation. So as we have here today, as we leave here today, let us remit ourselves to keeping the memory of our fallen lives. Let us ensure our youth understand at any early age that their freedom was paid forward to great expense. Let us work to educate others on the true meaning of Memorial Day. Let us vow to stand for those who are unable to stand up for themselves. On this sacred day, as we stand united as a nation, under Old Glory, the silent centennial of freedom, we see the faces of our fallen embedded in our symbol of red, white, and blue. And we thank them and them alone for your nation's past and for the hope and memories that continue to propel us into the future. God bless all our departed heroes, their families. God bless you, and God bless America.
Thank you. We will now have our guest speaker, Mr. Todd Bowers, United States Marine Corps, Iraq and Afghanistan. Mr. Bowers.
Everybody hear me okay? Yeah. No? How about now? Okay, so I just want to be up front and let you know that you can send me into Fallujah, you can have me invade a country, and it's far less nerve-wracking than standing up here on this solemn day in front of you all. But I got a belly full of coffee and antidepressants, so let's see how this goes, all right? When I turned 18 years old, I realized that there was something I needed to do with myself. I knew that my eyes were blue, my bones were white, and my blood was red, and I enlisted into the Marine Corps Reserves. But that was pre-9/11. It was a time when things were a little bit quiet. So in my mind, I thought I would just wear dress blues and meet a lot of girls. And then 9/11 happened, and everything shifted. And one of the major shifts that happened was the multiple deployments I went on and understanding what Memorial Day actually means. It was on my second deployment when I was in the city of Fallujah that I was wounded for the first time. A sniper's bullet hit my rifle, sent shrapnel into my face, and I went rolling down a hill. I stood back up, though, and was able to be medevaced and treated. But that's how close Memorial Day almost became something that was going to be very different for my family. You see, I try to convey to folks that while I enlisted and stepped up for service, it was my friends and family who were drafted. I made the choice to serve, but they made the choice to support me through that service. And that's what Memorial Day is really about. And I'd love to ask right now if everybody could please raise their hand if they have a loved one who has served in the military or even a friend. It's a far majority of people who have been touched by those in service than those who have actually served. And that's what today is really about. It is about those who are left behind and those who made the ultimate sacrifice. I want to share with you a quick story, if I could, on my fourth deployment when I was in Afghanistan. One of my best friends, Sergeant Bill Kerr, an incredible American, had actually received a waiver to join the Marine Corps at age 36 because of the drive he had for service. Bill and I's last meeting was on a mountaintop in Afghanistan where I was heading off in another direction for a different mission. Mine was supposed to be more dangerous, so we goofed off and he said, well, hopefully you make it back all right. A little bit of that dark military humor that comes through. Little did I know that that was the last time I was going to see Bill. Bill was shot approximately 24 hours later and died from his wounds. And when you're on deployment, you don't find this news out immediately. It was about 10 days later that I found out that Bill had passed away. The immediate flash into my mind was the loss of this incredible American, someone who had run for Congress, someone who had worked for newspapers, an incredible individual was taken away from us. But the secondary thought was his widow. She had just lost her husband, and she also knew that the two twin daughters in her belly at that time were never going to meet their father. Those kids were born within a few days after we came home from that deployment, and they're now preparing to start high school next year. The sacrifices that Renee, his widow, has made and his daughters have made is really what we want to think about on days like this. For every single one of those marble tombstones that represents the sacrifice of an individual, there are so many more that have been impacted. And it's something that makes me feel very proud to be a part of this country. I don't think there's another country on this planet that pays the amount of respect that we do for those that have made the ultimate sacrifice to bring us to where we are today, to allow us to spend this day celebrating their lives, not just barbecuing, not just getting sales on mattresses, but being thankful for every minute that we have, especially under this gorgeous sun. And I haven't asked for you guys too. There's a unique proclamation from Congress where on Memorial Day, we're supposed to, at 3 o'clock, take a moment, I believe it's a full minute, and reflect on the service and sacrifice of those that have paid the ultimate sacrifice. I'd ask you guys to tweak that a little bit. And for people like Sergeant Bill Kerr who are not here, who aren't able to hug their widows, who aren't able to hug their children, when you take that moment, hug those you love, hold them close, tell them thank you, and really think about what it is to be an American. Because we're pretty lucky, folks. I've been in a lot of really dingy corners of this planet, and I can tell you that we're doing okay. It sometimes feels like things are getting a little rough for us from time to time, whether it be wars, tough economies, and everything else. But right now, in front of all these colors, amongst all these amazing individuals, we're doing okay. And we're doing okay because of those sacrifices. I want to thank the town of Tewksbury for having me. I'm a relatively new Englander. My daughter got her first tick the other day, so I feel like we're becoming official. But coming up and seeing towns like this really makes me proud to be an American and for the service that I was fortunate to be able to give. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much, Tom. We will now have the presentation of the flowers to honor the deceased service members. So will the VFW and American Legion please stand by your flowers. The first is the Revolutionary War. The Civil War. The Spanish-American War. World War I. World War II. The Korean War. The Vietnam War. The Gulf War. The Afghanistan War. The Iraq War. Now we will have the reading of the names of the Tewksbury service members that were killed in action and veterans that have passed away since the last year, including members of the American Legion Post 259 and VFW Post 8164. veterans that have passed away. And I'll read them. World War I. Dexter Edward Bailey. Everett Earl Fulton. Hector Lewis Jackson. Dennis O'Connell. Gerald Thomas Silk. World War II. William G. Abbott. Raymond P. Briggs. John R. Cooney. Walter J. Flynn. Paul Jeremiah Houlihan. James A. Lawler. David Neal McQuarrie. John T. O'Neill. Alfred C. Thompson. Daniel P. Wassel. Korea. Thomas F. Keogh. Vietnam. Wayne C. Allen. Daniel K. Earlison. George A. Kirokas. Richard G. Moran. David Michael Morris. Lugo W. Palmer. Robert Everett Spires. Ralph T. Conserva. I'm sorry, my notes got confused. We're back to World War II, I'm sorry. Chester M. D. Peter W. DeJohn. Guido J. DeVito. Willie J. Dowling. Joseph A. Fontana. William A. McCarthy. Edwin P. Sampson. Frederick J. Wilkie. Back to Korea. Alan R. Adrian. Ruth T. Byers. Pasquale B. D'Amato. Richard L. Dorney. Francis V. Hart. John L. Horahan. Bernard E. Ireton. John J. Giannacona. Richard Kirsch. Francis H. LeBeau. Thomas L. Non. Joseph J. Panessa. Benedict J. Pothier. Walter L. Scott. Richard J. Stanton. Anthony M. Tamaro. Vietnam. Joseph F. Adnosi. Dominic Ballerina. Paul Crean. William E. Graham. Michael R. Isconi. Arthur W. Mansfield. Leo R. Masucci. Thomas S. Murphy. Robert R. Pierce. John E. Rogers. William A. Spirito. James F. Wagner. Stephen M. Ward. Joseph Stanley Whitcomb. Afghanistan. Scott M. Forbes. Thomas J. Gould. Iraq. James G. Dyke. And these are people that serve peacetime. Joseph L. Castronova. Charles L. Doherty. Brendan J. Flynn. Earl R. Harrison. Richard E. McCollum. Bruce A. Mills, David X. Pulo, Bruce D. Russell, William P. Souza, Donald E. Zelenik. Those are the people that have passed away since last year. Now read Flanders Field by Colonel John McCrae. In Flanders Field the poppies blow, between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky, the larks still bravely singing fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunsets glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders Field. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you from failing hands we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders Field. Now have the 21-gun salute. I will warn people, this will be loud. They are using rifles, so it will be loud. If noise bothers you, I suggest you cover your ears. So, the VFW Honor Guard, Post 8164, and the Tewksbury Police and Fire Honor Guards.
So firing positions. Aim. Fire. Up. Aim. Fire. Recover. Aim. Fire. Recover. All right. Rest.
Now have the lowering of the flag to half staff. VFW Honor Guard, Post 8164. Now have the playing of taps by Debbie Boyce Lazinski.
What up? Huh?
We now have our closing song, God Bless America, by our swinging seniors in the Tewksbury Memorial High School Chorus.
Where the storm clouds
Very good. Thank you. I want to thank everybody for coming out today for this memorial service. I'd like to give a special thanks to John Bushway and his troop 322 of the Boy Scouts, because they've been taking care of Memorial Square since 1992. So special thanks to them, and thanks to you for coming. And the parade is supposed to kick off at 11 o'clock up at Main Street, so feel free to head on up there. And again, thank you for coming.